Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's going to be a slightly different Israel Insider format. Tonight, we are hosting Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser, who's going to talk about his recent policy position paper about the disarmament of Gaza. What we will do is we'll start with 15 minutes where I will ask Yossi some questions, and then after 15 minutes, we're going to open up for Q&A to those of you who are watching from around the world. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I will also put a link to the position paper itself in the chat box for those who haven't seen it, so they can read it after tonight's or this afternoon's webinar. I'd like to first of all start with the bio of Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser. Is an Israeli intelligence and security expert. He has served as head of the research division of the IDF military intelligence and has served as Director General of the Israel Ministry of Strategic Affairs. Kuperwasser is currently head of the Israel Intelligence Methodology Research Institute and is senior project manager at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, specializing in the security dimensions of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Yossi, good evening. I will start with the first question, with your permission. In your position paper, you attempt to examine and challenge the policy of just seeking calm between eruptions of violence. Can you please tell us how this policy came about historically and what drives it today?
Well, we left Gaza in 2005, and we left it in the hands of Fatah, in the hands of the Palestinian Authority. Thereafter, in 2007, Hamas took over, and we were faced with a new situation. And everything we did ever since then was some sort of a reaction without too deep thinking about what we are actually trying to do. And we were under the impression that what we do is the least worst option. There are no good options with Gaza. Gaza for us always seemed to be a chronic problem that you cannot actually solve. Nobody wants Gaza. And the best we can do is have Hamas as strong enough in order to control the more radical groups in Gaza, and weak enough to be deterred by Israel, and by that create a situation where we have long period of quiet in between rounds of violence. That was the idea. We thought that we can mobilize for that purpose also Egypt, and which we did repeatedly. And we knowingly act in a way that allowed Hamas to run Gaza and to arm itself to its teeth with advanced weaponry. And we thought that through our investment in advanced weaponry, from our point of view, we should be able to create a situation where the damage caused by Hamas is going to be limited. And that was the case. We invested billions of dollars in the effort to control the new toys that Hamas have employed again and again, the longer and longer ranges rockets, the tunnels, now UAVs and maritime weaponry, all these kinds of things we think that we can deal with. But the fact is that this created a situation that there was never a really deep discussion about, in which we actually accept the situation where our security and the security of the people of Israel is under threat continuously. And whenever Hamas wants to start an attack because of all kinds of reasons, they can do that and cause Israel paralysis for a certain period of time, and sometimes even quite a few casualties.
Okay, thank you. That's a little bit about the history of what some have described as mowing the grass. Your position is adamantly against this policy called mowing the grass, whereby each round of escalation heavily damages Hamas's infrastructure, but really fails to prevent it from rearming rapidly with more sophisticated and capable weaponry. You've laid out a little bit the argument for the so-called mowing the grass, but what would you say to those who says that it really is, unfortunately or fortunately, really the best option available to provide security for Israel, especially in the south?
Well, I say that it provides certain security in between the rounds of high-level violence, but it definitely doesn't provide the sense of security because you are always under the threat of Hamas, and it doesn't provide security when there is an eruption of violence. And we saw that in Guardian of the Walls in the best way, but we saw that in previous rounds as well. And we also see that today Hamas is not strong enough in order to take control and be responsible for the use of power from Gaza Strip. The original idea was that they would be strong enough in order to control groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad. In fact, they are not good enough they're not strong enough in order to do that at home. And they leave it to us to handle the Palestinian Islamic Jihad as we did in 3 rounds already in the last couple of years. So it's not the best option. And what is needed, what I recommend most of all, before even changing the policy, I recommend thorough discussion about the policy to clarify whether this is really the best policy or whether there is another policy. And I suggest another policy, a competing policy, that may be better than the current one, in the sense that it would enable us to get rid of the permanent threat of Hamas. And by that, we shall gain a lot of benefits, because this current situation, not only that we are under continuous threat and we have the people of Israel, as a matter of fact, and especially those living close to Gaza, we have them in a constant fear of the fact that something can erupt. But even more than that, we actually prove Hamas' claim that the best way to handle Israel is through the use of force. And we enable Hamas to become stronger and stronger inside the Palestinian arena, which is definitely not something we would like to see happening. So even from that point of view, the current situation is not the best option, or not necessarily the best option. Let's sit and discuss it. And maybe we have better options. The problem is that Israelis are not available to this discussion, because 2 seconds after the last rocket is launched from Gaza in a certain round of violence, immediately the Israelis forget about Gaza, and until the next round, they will never have any attention to that, because they believe that Iran is more important, Hezbollah is more important, Arab Israelis are more important, Arab Palestinians in the Judea and Samaria area are more important. Everything is more important than Hamas, as long as there's no rockets, there are no rockets launched from Gaza, which is wrong, because out of all the threats we are facing, the one that is more frequently ready to take action is Hamas. And this is Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They are the ones who are much more frequent than Hezbollah using their capabilities against us and causing a lot of damage.
On the debate, you're saying, especially within the security establishment, which I know you know very well and you were part of for many, many years, the argument would be that the current policy keeps the loss of life to a minimum. You obviously disagree with that assessment, and the suggestion that perhaps what you are recommending would lead to a far greater loss of life. How do you deal with that criticism, and what do you say to it?
Well, fortunately, we do have a low level of loss of lives as a result of the Hamas threat, because we developed and keep developing capabilities to face the rockets, and we had this wall that prevents the tunnels from coming in. But this cost us a lot of money, and keep costing us a lot of money, and make us more dependent on the United States to get the money, the $3.8 billion a year, to equip ourselves with the Iron Dome interceptors. So it comes with a price. And, this price is heavy, and we can have less because let's put it this way. Iron Dome can deal with 95% of, can intercept something around 95% of the rockets targeted towards populated areas at any given time. Let's say that Hamas today has so many rockets that they can launch. They launched in the last round, I think, if I remember correctly, something like close to 10,000 rockets. Let's say that the next time they will launch 10,000 rockets, which is very reasonable. This means that 500 rockets are going to hit. I mean, they've improved the rockets. I mean, so many of them are going to be targeted towards populated areas. Let's say that out of the 10,000, 8,000 will be directed towards populated areas. This means that something like 400 rockets will fall in populated areas. This is not a minor number. What I suggest is to prevent Hamas from launching rockets at all, and that will save us 400 rockets falling in populated areas in the next round of violence with Hamas, which is much better.
I'd like to get a little bit deeper into that. And you say, or you call for Israel to rid itself of Hamas's threat by disarming it, and then prohibiting its rearmament and demonstrating conclusively that threatening Israel is indisputably against its interests. In other words, defeating it, something that perhaps it could be argued Israel hasn't done in any of the other rounds. But how, as they say in Israel, tachlis, how would Israel go about that?
Well, I say that the most important change in the policy should be that after I'm not saying that we should go there right now. Right now, we should have the discussion. And if we adopt a new policy, we should make it clear that we have adopted the new policy, because this is going to deter Hamas very much, because they wouldn't like us to adopt the new policy or to practice the new policy. But what I suggest is that after the next round of atrocities with Hamas, we shall adopt a new policy that says that we shall not allow Hamas rearmament. Because today, and then this is very critical in any agreement that follows this round of violence, today Hamas knows that we are not going to hit the production sites that it operates. We just do that in retaliation, and we do it in a very small volume after there are some rockets launched towards Israel. And we shall allow them to keep arming themselves after any round. And they know that we are not going to do anything economically against them. They know that we are not going to do anything against their leaders. They are totally safe. And this is a situation that allows them to do all those steps that are threatening us. What I suggest is that after the next round, we should clarify to Hamas that we shall not allow them to operate new sites of production of arms. We shall hit them as soon as we learn about them. That's what, by the way, that's what we do in Syria for the last 10 years. I think it has quite an impact on the pace in which Hezbollah arms itself, because weapons are being hit while they're on the way to Lebanon, while they're in Syria. And that's what we do in the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority. We enter every day, and whenever we know about some group is planning to carry out an attack, or it's planning to get some arms, we enter and confiscate the arms. Unfortunately, we don't know enough. But we have to adopt this policy. In order to be able to adopt this policy, I say that we should improve our intelligence. We have good intelligence, very good intelligence, but not good enough. And that's why we have to improve our intelligence. We have to improve our military capabilities. We have to take harsher steps, we should be ready to take harsher steps on the economic side. And we have to take harsher steps on the political side and on the legal side. Now, all the combination of all these efforts is necessary in order to create a new message. But what I'm saying is that the international community, after the next round, is going to be more able to accept such a change in policy. As a matter of fact, it's the same after each round. There's immediately after the round, there is readiness from the international community to understand if Israel would have changed its policy. But we never take advantage of that. What I'm saying is that we have to take advantage of that because everybody knows that Hamas is a terror organization trying to kill Israeli citizens in an indiscriminate manner. So it's they will definitely understand what we are trying to do. And we can even put Egypt on the wagon with us because the Egyptians don't like Hamas either. So it's and if they understand that Hamas is a threat for stability and that eventually Israel may just force Hamas out of Gaza, and I say that for that purpose we need also to create some sort of a threat that will be, as we say in Iran, a credible military threat. Then the chances are that the Egyptians would also try to join the effort to prevent Hamas from arming itself, and they can do much more than they do today. Because definitely, I'm not saying that they're not trying, but they don't try hard enough. They should try harder.
Before we go to questions from the audience, you wrote this paper for the Israel Victory Project. The concept is to convince Israel's enemies to give up their dream of destroying Israel, to accept defeat, and for Israel victory. So I'd like to take you a little bit to a higher vantage point over this whole question. Would you argue that Israel, would you accept, or what would you say to those who say that Israel has forgotten or is just not interested in victory as it once was in the War of Independence, the Six-Day War, etc.? How can that be changed, not just vis-a-vis Hamas, but other enemies of Israel?
No, I don't think that Israel doesn't want victory. Of course, Israel wants victory, but the perception of victory today is achieving the goals set by the government. And the goals set by the government today in vis-a-vis Gaza is long periods of quiet in between rounds. That's the goal set. And as long as we get long, we always dream that this time we shall have a longer period of quiet. And as we saw recently, it doesn't materialize. But we keep dreaming about long period of quiet. That's the idea that of the strategy we have adopted of the campaign between wars, knowing that a war is a war, a round of violence is cannot be avoided, and we just can prolong the period between the wars, between the high-level violent rounds. That's the problem. That's the definition of victory. And I say two things. First of all, we have to change the definition of victory. Victory is when we convince our neighbors that Israel has the right, or at least Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people and is here to stay. And if they want also to accept our right for that, it would be even better. But even if they accept it as a fact, it's a move forward. And if this is the case, there's no point in putting all our efforts in trying to wipe it off the map and cause it damage through the use of force. And that's what we need to convince Hamas, that there's no point in trying to inflict damage on Israel, because it's going to lead Hamas nowhere. And it's going to put it in a place, and that's exactly the point of victory in this respect. If Hamas gives up, or is forced to give up, it's not going to give it up by its own will. If Hamas is forced to give up its rearmament capabilities, it's not going to be Hamas anymore. This is a victory, because Hamas is about armed or jihad against Israel. If you take away from Hamas the capability to carry out jihad, even if it believes in jihad, but it cannot practice it, then it's a different enemy, and this is a victory, and this is going to lead to not only a better security situation, but also to a greater chance that the Palestinians will eventually accept Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people, which will be ultimate victory.
Thank you. Let's go to some questions. The first question is from Robert Slater. He asks, how much pressure has the US and EU put on Israel to limit its actions in Gaza?
Well, I don't think that the issue is on the table at this point. So nobody puts pressure on Israel because Israel doesn't want to do anything. So we are not under pressure, but we definitely take into account, I think, the fact that if we do something out of the blue, we are going to have disagreements with the US and with the UAE and with the other members of the Abraham Accords. And that is something we would like to avoid. So if it's not necessary. And right now, I'm not saying it's necessary. But what we have to say to the US and to the UAE, if we eventually have this discussion about policy in Gaza, once we adopt a new policy, if we decide to adopt one, is to tell them in advance, listen, next round of atrocities in Gaza, enough is enough. We are not going to allow Hamas to rearm itself. We are going to take all the steps necessary in order to prevent it. And we expect you to be on our side in this. And I think that there is a good chance that both the US and the members of the Abraham Accords are going to support a policy like that if we explain it in advance, carry out this. I'm talking in the paper about a campaign that has to precede the adoption of or the implementation of the new policy. And if we have a campaign that in which we explain all these new policies to our friends, we may have their support. They are not against it.
Thank you. We have a question from David Levine. Other speakers have highlighted the fact that Hamas and Hezbollah leaders will do anything they can to avoid being in the line of fire. Would you advocate a policy of targeting and killing the leaders of these groups with the expectation that Israel would decapitate the effectiveness of the terrorist groups by removing their leadership?
Well, there are leaders that getting rid of them has a major contribution to the ability to reach our goal. And these kind of leaders should be eliminated. Not every and each leader, but some of them are. But again, not right now out of the blue. But in a policy, in a different policy, whereas the current rule of the game is that we don't do that. Future policy rule can be that it's not out of the question. It can happen. This is going to deter Hamas very much and keep them away from threatening Israel. And they should know in advance that this is the policy. But my major issue is about armament. I'm saying this can change too, but the major issue is rearmament. If we manage to improve our capability to make it impossible for Hamas to rearm itself, the leaders are less important.
Okay, thank you. An anonymous attendee asks, who would or what would rule Gaza if Hamas were to be defeated?
Well, first of all, Hamas will rule Gaza, but it will not pose a threat to Israel. They want to rule Gaza. They don't want to lose it. And we have to take advantage of the fact that they want to rule Gaza so much in order to clarify to them that if you want to rule Gaza, don't mess around with us. And that is the message that we don't deliver to them today, or not deliver clearly enough today. And we have to clarify that. And I'm not saying that Israel should rule Gaza, although in the worst case, I'm not ruling this option altogether, but for a short period of time. But I do not advocate taking control of Gaza, and I'm definitely not in favor of bringing Fatah to Gaza. This is not feasible in my mind. I don't mind if Hamas keeps ruling Gaza as long as it gives up the idea of threatening Israel from Gaza.
Don Sable, he brings up a point you have related to this a little bit previously. Israel's supposedly continually hitting targets in Syria, where Iran has stored or attempted to move weapons for Hezbollah. Why is Israel not continually hit targets in Gaza and Lebanon where weapons might have been known to have prevented, built up, stored? And also, does Israel know where the location of these weapons are in Gaza and Lebanon and just decided not to? Why is the policy so radically different to the one taken in Syria?
Well, as I said, in each arena, we have rules of the game, rules of engagement. And in Syria, we have established these rules that we can attack Iranian weapons that arrive to Syria, whether on the way to Lebanon or for use against Israel from Syria. And the reaction to that is very limited. Everybody understands. The Russians understand it. Maybe they don't support it, but they understand it and they acquiesce with that. It's definitely the Americans. Everybody understands and everybody accepts it. We have established rules in Gaza that are against our interest. We established rules that say that once there's no severe round of atrocities, we don't operate. These are the rules that we have established ourselves together with Hamas, but we accepted these rules. So to change the rules is something very difficult. It's not easy. And you got to have an excuse or some reason to change the rules. Right now, nobody shoots us. I was today driving all over Gaza for the entire day, and I felt totally safe. Right now, nothing happens. So it's there's no point in trying to change the rules now. But I'm saying if Hamas will give us the leverage that we need in order to change the rules, we should change them, because we haven't changed them after Cast Lead. We haven't changed them after the Guardian of the Walls. We haven't changed them after all these operations that were there until now. And we are suffering because of that, because this means that when there's last Ramadan, for example, Hania and Sinwar and Mohammadeh felt that, well, maybe we'll do something. They started threatening, and even without doing anything, there was a lot of tension. There was people felt insecure and all of that, even without shooting. We have to change that, and we are committed to provide security and a sense of security to our population. They deserve it, and they are definitely worthy.
Thank you. And finally, you talked a little bit about creating the debate beyond the operations. You talked about the fact that 5 minutes after the last rocket, the debate moves on elsewhere. How do you create this new debate? Because obviously your policy paper is about creating options, about continuing that debate even beyond the operations. How do you make this change that you seek? Is it from top down by influencing the decision makers, opinion shapers in the political and security echelons? Or do you believe that the debate should happen, first of all, in the public to try and make them aware that there are other options as opposed to the policy which is being enacted at the moment, and hope that that will influence the decision makers and opinion shapers? What do you think is the best way to ensure that the option which you present in your policy paper is discussed, becomes part of the debate, and perhaps leads to another option on the table that perhaps can be used in the future?
Well, I think all of the above. We have to create a situation and we have to discuss it with the decision makers. I'm trying to do that from time to time, raise this issue when I see them. And we also have to, and this is the most important thing, bring the people who are directly involved in that into the debate, and mobilize NGOs and think tanks and projects like the Middle East Forum, Israel Victory Project, and politicians that support it in the lobby in the Knesset and so on and so forth, to promote this idea. We have, we have this population, this wonderful population of the people living around Gaza. Their voice is heard, and everybody shows solidarity with them when the rockets are flying. the moment the rockets stop flying, they themselves are not doing anything. It's they should be more vocal and demanding a debate when there are no rockets for launched, because they suffer the post-traumatic syndromes and all of that. So it's their interest first and foremost, and it's an interest of everybody in Israel, but definitely those who are interested in a better security situation in Israel and in the Israeli victory, as I defined it before, to raise this issue constantly and bring about a change, bring about, first of all, a discussion. And if the discussion, everybody can have their opinion there, and we'll see what the outcome will be. Maybe somebody was going to convince that what we're doing today is still the best. I'm saying in the paper, the policy of today is just a revealed preference that, because we are there, but we didn't discuss it. We just happened to be there, and we have to discuss it. And all these groups together, the politicians on their side, the forum and the Israeli Victory Project, and the population, the wider side of the population, the NGOs and think tanks, should bring this to discussion. The press should be involved in that as well, should pay attention to that. There should be discussions there. The media, TVs, and so on and so forth, social media, all these groups should be involved, and this will create the necessity for the government to exert some time, to spend some time discussing it. Today, everybody is with the judicial issues, and if they have any time, they spend it on Iran. We have to explain that Iran may be very problematic, and I have my opinion on Iran as well, but Gaza is still a very pressing issue, and we have to deal with it.
Thank you very much, Yossi, for your time, for your presentation. To all those who haven't read the policy paper, it can be found in the webinar chat. If not, you can go to the Middle East Forum website and you can find the policy paper, the introduction, the synopsis, and everything related to this fascinating and now very well reported on policy position paper by Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser. Yossi, thank you very much again, and a good afternoon, a good evening to all our viewers around the world. Thank you very much.